All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the stream. We are live. Hope everyone is doing well tonight. I think we're live on the YouTube side. It looks like we are. Okay. Sometimes that's a few seconds behind. All right. So we are going to pick up where we left off last stream. I did get some stuff done offline. We'll go over that, as well as kind of go through our list of things that we want to implement and some of the things that we have implemented offline, as well as really just taking a look at adding a quick new feature that we're going to need for our zone system. So we're going to do that. But before we do, I do want to just take a quick second and thank the supporters of the channel listed here on the screen, beginning with our elite partner, Javier Lazaron. That is the highest tier of subscription over on YouTube memberships and Patreon, followed by our partners, which is the next tier of support there. And they are Gerbolis Inc. and Matt Ostgard. And I would also like to thank all of the other supporters listed here under the supporter section. They are a combination of the other tiers of support over on YouTube memberships, Patreon, and Twitch subscriptions. So thank you all very much for your support. It is greatly appreciated and will help me offset the costs of this project that we are working on now, all the way through its development cycle. So I don't have any sponsors, I just have you guys, so I really appreciate that. In addition, I would like to thank all of the viewers, whether you guys are catching us live, either on the YouTube side or the Twitch side. We do simulcast to both. Or if you're just catching the VOD after the fact, I appreciate the support either way, because without you guys, obviously, this channel and this project would not exist. So thank you all very much for following along. I greatly appreciate you guys. All right, time to catch up on some chats. Tammin, it's always good to see you. How are you doing? Dustin, my dudes, good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Let me expand this a little bit so I can read it a little bit better. All right. Tammin, thank you for the Prime sub. 13 months. Really appreciate the support there. Thank you so much. You're on the screen. You are on the screen. Yep. Dr. Elliot is ahead of you. Yeah, it's alphabetically sorted. So, LaFoley, good to see you as well. How's it going? All right. So, I guess the first thing I should probably talk about is what you guys may have noticed in terms of the project structure. It's all good. You guys have talked for the last few years. Yeah. Dr. Elliot's good people. I like him a lot. So the first thing that you may have noticed is our project structure over here is quite a bit different. So one of the things that I talked about wanting to do, I thought I had left it up here, but I guess I deleted the comment. I wanted to talk about sort of the existing project structure and the way that things were sorted out. Because we have this sort of large mono repo with, Kohi and all the plugins and then including testbed and including the game code, right? And I did say the game code being in the Kohi repo was going to be temporary. And now we have actually split that out into its own repo. So there is an SOI repo. That repo for now is private because I've decided not to open source the actual game logic yet. Because I do have the intention of actually releasing this game on Steam. And so as of right now, the game code is not going to be open source, although you could probably pick it apart as we, go here on stream if you're following along and see most of what's happening. But at least for right now, the engine will always be open source, will always be free, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the game is going to be, right? So for right now, it's going to be closed source, but all that means is just our game code is a private repo. So the structure that we have here is we follow the same kapp and klib structure that we had before. So this is from the perspective of that new repository, right? So we have our standard git VS Code folders for just the configuration there, our bin and obj folders for our builds, right? All of that has pretty much been the same. NRK app and RK-lib. Those are the same as what they were before. They've been moved out of the Kohi repo and into this repo. And then what we have is we have submodules underneath of that, and those are Git submodules. And for right now, Kohi is underneath of that. So Kohi itself, along with all of the plugins and all the other build stuff that we've been doing, is all located under here. So Kohi is now a submodule dependency, right? So when we go ahead and clone this repo, we would have to clone it recursively to get the submodule, right? And we do have a K build here that I'm not going to go into that yet, but that's something that is coming in the future.
Good evening, Travis 168. Hi.
Whoa. Golden Kappa train. Am I seeing things? Thank you for the 100 bits, by the way. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I've never gotten a Golden Kappa train before. What the heck? Yeah, I've never seen that on my channel before. I've only seen it on like Thor's channel. Wow, okay. That's kind of cool. Well, I appreciate you guys triggering that. Sniffling again. Yeah, I think my allergies are going a little bit nuts today. Well, I guess if you guys want the Golden Kappa, I think the way to get the emote there for 24 hours is I think you have to drop at least 100 bits. So if you're interested in doing that, and I think once it gets past level 1, I think you can get that emote, I want to say. So if you're interested in getting that, feel free to throw bits, but you don't have to, obviously. But that's really cool. I have never seen one of those before. That's definitely new. All right. Widgeler, good to see you. It's been a while. How are you doing? Welcome. It abbreviates to SOI. Yeah, it does. It is what it is. I might rename it to Illumina or something like that. But yeah, for right now, that is what it is. Thank you for the 10 bits. I appreciate that. Okay, so while that train is going, Sergeant Pepper, thank you for the 100 bits. I really appreciate that.
Kappa Chad.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. That's awesome. That's really cool. I haven't even seen a hype train actually in a while, but a Golden Kappa train, that's definitely different. Okay. Sorry, I got a little bit distracted by that. Okay. So, the way that we're doing this now is we have a submodule here that Kohi is going to live in. And this is the way all of our game projects are going to exist. So I have not made this change with testbed, but testbed is also going to be set up this way, and I'll probably wind up moving overdrive as well. So testbed will wind up being open source in public. Overdrive I probably will do as well, just as like another template. We'll see how that goes. Smudge, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Soulfoam, good to see you as well. You know, I didn't think about that. I totally did not think about that abbreviation, and I've typed it like a dozen times. I'm probably going to have to change the name of that. I did not think about that. Smudge redeemed the credit redeem too. So Smudge, you get added to this file. The only other person to redeem that is Tammin. So what this means is that your name will actually show up in the credits of the game when we release it. So I'm going to add you in here. I'm just going to add you in here as Smudge. And if you want it to appear differently, let me know. But yeah, appreciate that. Welcome to the club. Yeah, there's only 2 of you in there at the moment. But yeah, 100K is quite a lot of points. All right. Doing well, rewriting my renderer. Awesome. Which abbreviation? So, Shadows of Illumina is, it's abbreviated to that. Which is actually kind of funny. I'm going to wind up changing that for sure. From Lakes, good to see you. Yeah, so just because I'm not open sourcing it now doesn't mean that I won't. It's just that I've decided not to yet. More than likely, sometime after its release, I'll open source it. Dustin, my dudes, with 1,000 bits. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And you've taken the golden Kappa train to level 2, so anybody that throws 100 bits or more, or a sub, gets that emote. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. I'm not used to, like, promoting that. Yeah, and you got a new badge. Appreciate that. Spiro with the gift subs. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Spiro is a Giga Chad here on Twitch, if you guys aren't familiar with him. I'm going to give him a shout out real quick, because he's another streamer here. Spiro throwing around some PHP monies. Let's see. There we go. And Sergeant Pepper, I actually owe you one too, but it makes me wait like a minute and a half. So yeah, thank you very much, Spiro. I appreciate that. So yeah, Magats, you dodged it. That's funny. That's very funny. Okay. All right. Cool. So yeah, thank you guys again very much for the bits and the subs. Very much appreciated. Okay. Like the idea of a simple platformer with source code open and free, amazing maps and mods could have been made. Yes. And we will be doing that at some point. It just didn't wind up working out this time around, but that's one of the reasons I'm probably going to put this out there as a template. You know, we're going to have a couple of different templates to work from, and those will be open source, just not this particular game itself. Spiro, thank you for the gift sub to Magat sub. Appreciate that. Thank you so much for the support. Very much appreciated. Giga Chad stuff over here, yeah. Well, you guys took the Golden Kappa train to level 5. That's pretty awesome. Well, thank you very much. Must be payday. Make sure you pay the Lambo bill first. That's very funny. I mean, if Spiro could probably just spawn a Lambo, right? All right. I'm also going to give a shout out to Sergeant Pepper. He's another streamer here. Writing code on Twitch with a lot of us insane people who like to do this for fun. So definitely give him a follow as well. Okay. Now, let's see what else. Where was I? Okay, so we talked about the submodule thing. The other thing I want to bring up is I greatly simplified the build process. And this is kind of phase 1 of that simplification. So we used to have 2 different make files, one for executables and one for libraries. And that's been condensed into one, and then we modified the build scripts that call them to basically pass a mode. So if we take a look at this really quickly, we have this build mode that gets passed. So it either builds an executable or a lib, right? And that just changes up a lot of the options. And we moved a lot of the, the linker flags and whatnot out of the makefile and into the build scripts that call them. And that's kind of the general direction we want to go. And then I guess I can kind of briefly mention this now, but Kbuild is I've started actually making our own build system in C. It's nowhere near ready for me to even demo. and at this point could likely blow things up, so I'm not going to do that on stream. But we are working on a build system in C so that we don't have to have make files and all that stuff. We just use C to build C, essentially. Okay, so that's submodules. The other thing, we talked about that. We talked about the build system. So the other thing I want to talk about is we started on the zone system in the last stream. And this is mostly complete for now. So we've actually got a lot of this stuff set up and ready to go. So we'll kind of just talk about that really quickly, and then we'll kind of move on to the other thing I want to talk about tonight, which is getting volumes in place. And we'll go over what that is, and we'll actually start implementing it. Let's see. I like the skill issue on cam. I do my worst when everybody's watching. That's called dingus-oriented programming is what that is. Shame me to implement the quick hull CNC too. I posted some updates on Discord. I'll have to double check on that for sure. Go live screw up? Yes, all the time. Zig has a built-in build system. Yes, it does. But C does not, right? So that's why we're doing that. What build system will you use to build the build system? So literally the entire build system for this is all going to be in one C file. So it's going to be a quick call to Clang or GCC, whichever one you want to use, with a single C file, and then that'll build the executable, and then you use that executable to build everything else, right? So it's just a compiler. Yeah, I'm not going to be switching to Zig, that's for sure. And I don't want any external dependencies, right? I'm trying to eliminate those, which is why I'm making a build system. Can you just use the Zig compiler to do your build system for the C code? I could, but I don't want the dependency. So, yeah. Golden Kappa train success. Awesome. Thank you guys again for that. I really appreciate that. That's a new one for the channel for sure. Yeah, so definitely enjoy your emote there, guys. Very much earned. Appreciate that. Just playing about the Zig stuff. Yeah, I know. Zig compile C2, but I love not adding deps. Yeah, so that's the thing, right? First time chatter, welcome, by the way. So I'm trying to actually eliminate dependencies, right? So one of the dependencies right now, like we have these dependencies on Windows, you've got to have PowerShell. On Linux and Mac OS, you've got to have some way to process shell scripts, which aren't fully cross-platform depending on what you're doing, right? Whereas if we build the entire thing in C, it'll just work, right? We won't have to worry about that stuff. So it'll allow us to get rid of all those things for sure. Build strapping is my new favorite word. That's good. If you have Git on Windows, you probably have Git Bash too. This is true, but again, that's another dependency, right? Which I don't necessarily want to have people work in Git Bash if they don't want to. You should be able to, but you shouldn't have to. You can do tests in your C build file. Yeah. All right. All right. So we have the ability to deserialize the zone system configuration. So if we go into app config, under systems, we now have zone system config, right? So what this is it's a bit like, at least for right now, it's a bit like a zone manifest, you can think of it. So we have a single zone configured in here, and what this does is it gives a sort of internal name to the zone, a display name that is used for, displaying on-screen text or something like that. We're going to call it the Dingus test zone for now. And then the name of the scene that's associated with it. So in this case, it's going to be zone 00. And then the actual package name that resides in. And if the scene package name isn't defined, it just defaults to the games package, right? So that is basically all there is to this. So this is what deserializes that and gives us sort of a configuration that we can then use to stand up the system. So initialization of the system is basically just looking at the configuration, standing up arrays we need, setting up the zone names and the scene names and all that stuff, essentially creating a copy of this type of stuff, but in the internal format that the system needs, right? And then we also have a binary lookup tree, right? So a binary search tree that we use so that we can look things up quickly by name. And so whenever we load a scene by name, that's the way we handle that. Shutdown essentially just reverses all of the zone stuff that was done in stand-up. And then we have an unload current, which basically we have a current zone, which is basically a pointer to a zone. And so if that happens to be set, then we'll go ahead and unload that and zero out the current zone. Zone system load takes in the zone system state, the zone name, and the spawn point ID. So if we recall, one thing that we talked about on the last stream is in the scene, we actually have the requirement of having spawn points. So we have to have something in the scene called spawn points, right? That's just a node that's got to exist. And then the children of that are spawn points. So these are just regular old nodes. We don't have to add any special types to the scene or anything like that. It's just because these are children of the spawn points node that they exist. And so these can provide a position and a rotation and a scale, which the scale is kind of ignored, but I put that in there anyways just to kind of prove that point. And so we have, in this case, we have two different spawn points, right? And so whenever we load a system, we verify that the spawn point ID that we want to load into is valid. And if it isn't, we just use the first one. And we always make sure that we have at least one spawn point available for every single zone. And so the first thing that we do here is we look up the zone, which should already exist in that sort of manifest thing that we had before. And then we go ahead and grab a pointer to it, check to make sure that it's not loaded currently, right? So either it's already been loaded before and it's unloaded, or it's not been loaded before and it's uninitialized. And then we go ahead and we load that up. We do the asset request as we did before to get the resource. And then after that is completed, we go ahead and we set up the scene. So we do the creation, the initialization, and here is where we search for the required spawn points node, right? So we have a few different API points that I added to the scene so that we could actually get whether or not a node exists by name. And then we can also get a child count of a particular node. So those are two new entry points that we added. And then within the zone itself, we have spawn point names, positions, and rotations. So those are just here, right? And these are all arrays that are all the same size. And this is just a nice data-oriented way to organize these. So if we have to operate very quickly on any of these pieces of data, we just index it by the zone ID, right? And then we go ahead and we extract the spawn point, position, and rotation. So note that we only worry about position and rotation. We don't actually care about the scale, right? So that's completely ignored. And then we go ahead and we load the scene. And then once that's done, we fire off an event that says, hey, we have a new game event that a zone has loaded. And so game events are a very specific type of events that are actually defined in the game types. So if we go to our types file, we actually have a new enumeration here for game events. And these are events that are used outside of where you would normally expect your system-wide events to be used, right? So your system events typically max out at 255, right? So anything beyond that is actually user space. So we can have as many events in here as we want. And so we go ahead and we move forward in that space. And so we fire off that event to anything that cares about it, and that's basically that. So we'll come back to that in a minute. And then we have zone system transition. So that basically says we want to transition to from whatever current zone we're in to the given zone name and spawn point. And so that unloads the current one and loads up the new zone. And then we have just a zone system current zone spawn get. And so we basically say for whatever the current zone is, I need the position and rotation for this particular spawn point ID. So we do some validation and then set those pointers accordingly. So the combination of this and this are what we actually use to move the player to the appropriate position in space when we go ahead and load. Now, that being said, there is one step that I skipped because I just kind of wanted to touch on it after we kind of got through everything else, which is, did we actually put it here? Or I think we actually put it in the game code. So, so we have, let me just find it. Okay. So we have a few things, right? We have our game register events and unregister events, right? So we have, whenever we do game register events, we register for all the various game events, right? The only one we have right now is zone loaded. So we are loading this to go to game on event when that is received. And then we also have unregistered events, right? So this, the combination of these two things are what is used to handle the library hot reloading so that our function pointers never become out of date whenever we hot reload. So we have that. And then we also have register commands and unregister commands, which is kind of the same concept. So I've gone ahead and put in a couple of different commands in here. We have exit and quit, right? Because I can personally never remember which one to type, so I just register them both. And they basically go to game command exit, which is what exits the application, right? So that just goes here and fires off a event code application quit, right? So there's that. And then load zone. Actually, all of these right here are actually console commands. So we talked a little bit about wanting to add those, and this is how we're going to handle that, right? So we have the ability to load a zone, go to a zone, unload a zone, or save a zone. And the way that this works is these first two take two parameters. So it's load zone, and then the zone name, and then the spawn point ID. And then go to zone with the same parameters, right? And so that is the way that that those are handled. And so load zone triggers the zone load, right? Whereas go to zone unloads the current zone and loads another zone, right? So I'm not entirely sure that we're going to leave those as separate commands. I might split them out, but they ultimately wind up calling different things. And so there's that. And then let's see. We also have unload zone, which unloads the currently loaded zone, and then save zone, which triggers a scene save, right? And eventually we'll do other things. So these can all be triggered from that drop-down console that we have within the game. So if we take a look at, if we go back to our app config, what we would do, and I can actually demonstrate this, is we would load test zone, right? And that's the internal name for it. So we would say load zone or go to zone, test zone, and then 0 or 1 for the spawn point. And so just to demonstrate that really quickly, let's go ahead and just run this. Right? And instead of just hitting the L key like I've always done, that is still technically there, but now we can go to zone, right? And then we can do test zone. And then the first spawn point, or the spawn point we want is index 0, right? And you'll note that that spawns us right on top of this tree, which is done on purpose for a visual marker, right? The other spawn point is actually in this audio thing. So if we go up here and go to the end here and say we want to go to test zone, but we want to go to spawn point 1 instead, what that's actually going to do is it's going to unload the current zone and reload it. Eventually, we'll probably put some checks in there to just teleport, but for now, this is what it's going to do. And then it'll actually spawn you over here at the other spawn point. And so what's really nice about this is that we can actually use this to quickly go between zones or load into any zone from anywhere and just be able to do it using our debug console so that we don't have to necessarily always walk to a specific place on the map. Obviously, we want that in there, right? And so by having these console commands, the other thing that this allows us to do is we can actually take this string right here, and we can actually just execute this console command from anywhere in the system. It doesn't have to be even from here. And so we could say when we have a trigger volume, for example, and we enter that, if the user presses like F or something like that while in that zone, it just executes this console command, and it would be the same as you entering it here. And so it'll follow the exact same code path, and it makes it very easy to configure that and not have to necessarily, hook that up directly in code with a bunch of function pointers and stuff like that. So that is that. And then, of course, if we do exit, we can exit. All right. Let me see. I do believe I've got some chats to catch up on here, so... Are you messing with windowing systems across platforms, or are you going down the render will render as needed kind of thing? When you say windowing systems across platforms, do you mean... Yeah, what do you mean by that, actually? Do you mean like the Win32, like WinForms versus X11 versus Wayland on Linux versus whatever it is on Mac OS? I can't remember. Wasn't build strapping a term coined by Soding? It sounds like something he would have said. Just made it up when I described my process. Fair enough. Soding's nobuild.h is kind of cool. Yeah, and I was looking at that. It's probably a bit more than I need, to be honest. I don't even need it to be that generic. I really just need something simple that's going to do what I need it to do. I mean, like Windows 32, X11, WAN. Yes, yeah. So our platform layer implements all that stuff. Yep. So we don't use STL or any of that kind of stuff for that. We implemented the platform layer all on our own. So like I'm on Arch now. So if I do platform Linux, which is actually going to wind up being split up, but platform Linux is I don't know why this isn't highlighting. It's clearly being built this way, but it's using X11 at the moment. So I'm going to have an X11 platform layer and a Wayland platform layer. We're utilizing X Wayland at the moment to achieve everything that we need to do. But yeah, we have all of the implementations of all of the various platforms here. If we do platform Win32, we've got Win32 in here as well, right? I don't know why any of these aren't highlighting. I guess maybe there's something still kind of screwy with the defines file or something like that. We'll have to see. But yeah, that's basically it. What is this? Are we finally making a game with Kohi? Yes, we are. Yep, we actually have. A design document. I use that term very loosely, right? It's more like an outline of just a brain dump, right? But we actually have a whole document here that contains world setting, names for things, all the different races in there, the different types of magic, the various bits like inventory, usable items, armor, weapons, stats, equipable things, all that stuff, movement. We've kind of and even some examples, some visual examples of like inspiration for art directions, right? So we've got all that, and then actually, let me just pull this up real quick. We actually have loading. We actually have a world map as well. That's actually in progress. I still have a lot of work to do on this. I haven't touched it since the last stream. But yeah, we've got 3 main continents for right now. And so we've got like a whole lore behind how we wound up where we are, in terms of where we start the game. Obviously, I'm going to be filling in a lot more of that stuff, but we've got a lot of outlines of lore and history of the world and stuff like that. So yeah, this is what we're building. It's called Shadows of Illumina, and that is a direct play on the magical energy that we call anima. That is also interwoven with the energies of light that powers all of the magical forces and various things, various aspects of life around the planet, right? So there's a lot of lore behind that, and this the name sort of plays to that. So that's the game we're making. It's a 3D isometric action RPG. So think of like a Diablo type of thing almost, right? That type of gameplay, or like old school Baldur's Gate, that kind of deal. By now he meant by the way. Yep. That's true. Arch, by the way. Never really thought about building a system to fire off console commands that sounds stupidly powerful. It is. It's grossly underutilized at the moment. But yeah, I can fire those off from anywhere. It doesn't even have to be that drop-down console. I thought, wasn't I doing that somewhere actually? I think I might have been. Oh yeah. Let's see. Trigger zone load. I think it might have been. I did do that in here somewhere. I'm trying to remember where it was. Setup key maps, maybe? Yeah, I think it was the L and U keybinds. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So, game on load scene. Like, I still have a keyboard shortcut here where if I hit the L key to load and the U key to unload, it actually loads up a specific scene, right? So you can build a command like this, just a formatted string, right? Where we say go to zone, name of the zone, and then spawn point ID. Here we just increment the spawn point ID. It's just a static hack, right? Just to kind of test that. And so we basically come up with a string, and then we say console command execute. And that does the same thing as me typing it into the console command, or the console window, the drop down. It's the same exact thing that winds up getting called there. And so we can do that from anywhere, right? For anything, any sort of registered console command, we can do that for, which is very useful. And like I said, I've not used that enough, to be honest. It's not highlighting because it's in an if-def block. Yeah, but the if-def should be correct, right? I think it has to do with the new structure I have set up. I have a feeling that my I have these compile flags.txt, and I have a feeling that those might be foobar. Because if we look in here, I guess I could look in core. Let's see. So that goes up. Yeah, see, it only goes up one directory. I think that's probably the issue. So I think this is what this file is what is used by ClangD in order to do the syntax highlighting within NeoVim. So I think this is just wrong. Essentially, this should probably be up 2 directories instead of just one. Because up 1 directory from here would just give us to Kohi core, which used to be correct, but now it's a submodule, right? Yeah, so we'll have to figure that out. I think that's just going to be a minor tweak in the build script, so not a huge deal. I'll figure that out offline. All right, so we have that. We've gone over the zone stuff in terms of loading more than one. I think what we probably ought to do is set up a second zone so that we actually have more than one to sort of go back and forth to, right? So let's maybe do, make sure I'm not coding behind my head here. Okay. So let's maybe do a copy of this one, and we're going to do, I guess we'll do test zone 2, right? I'm not planning on keeping these zones. Another dingus test zone, right? And we're going to use a 1, right, for that. So we'll have a second zone. And then we will go to the K-app under assets, and then scenes. We're just going to copy this one and paste it and rename it to zone 1. And then this is going to be, this name here doesn't actually make a difference. We don't actually use the name in the scene, so we don't even really have to have it, right? This is the very second zone in SOI. And so I guess we can keep the, the skybox, the directional light, the spawn points. I guess we could keep them the same for now, right? I don't really have any other test properties that we could use to sort of differentiate it. But yeah, we'll go with this. We'll have 2 different spawn points. I really ought to add, I suppose, get some more models so that we can actually start differentiating them. But so now we can do that. We need to do the asset manifest. So we have the test zone here, and this is going to be, we need test zone 2. Let's see. Oops, 2. Just needs to point here. And why do I feel like that's wrong? Oh, because we actually have to go to scene name is zone 0, 0, and zone. How did that actually work? Am I missing something, or did I hard code something somewhere? I should probably... So this is our zone system configuration, right? The scene name should match this. Did I wind up using the name instead of the scene name to actually do it? I might have. Zone system. So we should match on scene name, but then when we actually go to load the scene, or we should match on name rather, but then when we go to load the scene, it should be by scene name. So if we go to zone system load, the zone name is here. I did. That's exactly what I did. I did zone name. So this should be, instead of zone name, this should actually be scene name. And then this should also be scene package name or fallback to kname create. And then the default package name. Now, scene package name. Oh, because I have to do. There we go. Okay. Okay, so that's actually technically going to fix that bug, but this is going to break it, right? So this should be zone 00 and zone 01. So in the asset manifest, this should be zone 00 and zone 01, and then it should work. Let's go ahead and build that. Let's see. Be right back. Hopefully I'm not gone too long, but good luck with the next design stuff. Appreciate that. Platform your platform layer is managing everything. Looks solid. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. Hello, are you going to need any physics engine in your game? Not beyond the simple one that we have developed. And I'm not even convinced I'm going to need that one, but I'm going to try and use it anyway. When we talk about moving around, because I'm not going to like support jumping. So you're basically going to be able to just walk around on a single plane, right? And obviously go up hills and stuff like that and into buildings and whatnot. But it's going to be somewhat confined as to how you can walk around. Because I don't want to go too crazy with it or anything, you know? We'll provide a settings screen. Will you provide a settings screen to let users customize graphics, key mappings, etc.? Yes, definitely. We're probably not going to get that in for quite a while, but yeah, we will definitely have that. Okay, so that's done. Let's load this up and see. So we want to load, or actually go to scene. And then we'll do test, go to zone rather. Test zone. And then we'll do spawn point 0. Okay. So, did I actually put in here? Get past all the asset loading stuff. Pretty sure. Here we go. Okay. Loading zone, test zone, attempting to load asset zone 00 from package. Okay. So yeah, it is pointing to the correct thing now, which is good. So we've got that. And then I should also be able to do, what did we call that? Was it zone? Test zone 2, right? So we'll do test zone 2. And we'll also use spawn point 1, right? And there we go. So we are in that zone. I think when I do spawning player at position, I think I'm also going to output something like the description of the zone, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So let's see. So I should also mention, because I actually didn't go into how this bit works, but game on event is the event handler for our game events, right? It's what I'm going to pipe a lot of things through, and then from here probably split them out into functions if needed. But what this message means is that or this event means is that a new zone has been loaded successfully. And so we have, we go ahead and we get the spawn point for the given ID. And then we spit out a debug message saying, hey, we're spawning the player here. Let's go ahead and let's do a kinfo, right? And we'll just say welcome to, and then we'll just put the zone name here. And so we'll do z dot name, right? Which is, let's see, that's a k name, I think. Yeah, so we'll have to do a k name string get, right? And now we should see that in the actual console when we load into a zone. And obviously this will trigger like UI events to like make the zone name like appear on the screen or something like that. But at least this should give us some sort of indication as to where we are and that we're in the right run, right? So let's go ahead and do go to zone, test zone, and then spawn point 0. And let's see. Welcome to test zone. Oh, I should have done the display name. Okay. I think that is what I want to use instead of name. I think that's why. Display name, and that is already a string, so we don't need to do this. All right. So I guess we could also do, we could also do this. Loaded zone, right? And we'll do this as a trace, right? That way it doesn't show up on release builds, right? And then we'll do name, and we'll put this back. Kname string gets, right? So we'll just output both. That's useful debug information, I think. And I'm going to go ahead and just use the L key this time around, which accomplishes the same thing. Okay, so loaded zone, test zone. Welcome to test zone. Did I not already switch that? Or is it using the wrong thing? It might be. Let's see. That would be, it should be using this display name, right? We should be seeing this text. So actually we want deserialize config. I might have had a copy pasta issue in here. Display name. Yep, here it is right here. What a dongus. All right, and we don't need this. That should have been my clue that was wrong. Wait, why are we... This should also be zone config. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. This is saying if it's not provided, warn about it and then fall back. This should be, oh. That's actually the bug. This is a fallback, right? So if it doesn't exist, if we don't define display name, at least we have something to use. This was actually the bug. We were actually using display name, or we were using name instead of display name. So that should be fixed now. So if we go here and load, and then open the console, yeah, there we go. Okay, so loaded zone, and then that's the internal name. And then welcome to Dingus test zone, right? So if we do go to zone, test zone 2, spawn points, let's use 1 this time. Now we have loaded zone, test zone 2, welcome to another dingus test zone, right? So that works. I'm satisfied with that. And now what we can do is we want to implement volumes. And volumes are what we're going to use to trigger some sort of context sensitive action, where when we are inside of a particular volume, when the player position is inside of that rather, we can then allow the player to press a certain key and use that, right? So there's a couple different ways that we can do volumes. A lot of things do volumes in squares. I don't think we should limit ourselves necessarily to that. I don't think we need to go as crazy as having like custom polygon volumes, right? But I do think that we could have reasonably have spheres in squares, probably, or spheres in rectangles, we should say. Because sometimes we just want to be within radius of something to actually trigger it. And so we don't necessarily, need anything else aside from that. So I think that's what we're going to do. Orshi, how's it going? Good to see you. Wait, I follow a programmer 6 months ago. I would have run, but now I'm learning some programming. Awesome. Well, welcome. Will your game be multiplayer? No, it will not. It's going to be single player only. Because multiplayer and network code adds a lot of complexity, and the game is already complex enough, especially if you take a look at the actual document that we have written up so far, which is basically just a brain dump of ideas, and we have 29 pages. So in terms of features, it's basically, let's see. So yeah, this is wanted mechanics, world mechanics, combat mechanics, progression, things like that, equipable items, inventory, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, all those features, as well as the engine features that we need. It's already complex enough. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, we're not going to multiplayer this one. We might do that in future games, but for this one, no. Because I do actually want to release this at some point. That's the goal, right? I'm not making this just to, make it. I'm making this with the goal of releasing it as a full-fledged game on Steam. Just to kind of complete the full circle. All right, so we fixed that bug. And now we actually need to think a little bit about... volumes, right? And volumes can do various things. Let's see. So the place I like to start with this is actually... zone 0, 0. I should probably use... Yeah, the place I like to start with this is actually in the scene config to kind of figure out what properties do we need. How do we want to be able to configure this easily so that it's not super complicated to set up, things like that. When we talk about volumes, they can do a bunch of different things. So you could have a trigger volume, right, where you step into it and something happens. You could have a sound volume if you wanted to, like or a sound effect volume. So if you're within a volume that has like an echo effect on it, you can actually apply that so that you amp up the reverb and stuff in the sound system and make it sound echoey, like you're in a cave or something. You can have like a water volume, so you're a little bit more buoyant when you're within the water. You can have a weather volume like rain or something like that. All kinds of volumes, right? So volume is a little bit generic, but we're going to need to say, okay, well, we have a volume here. What kind of volume do we have? And then progress from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to I'm actually going to take a copy of this setup for a second, and the reason will be apparent here in a minute. So this is sort of the player that we've hacked in. We still need to eventually fix that as well. Obviously, the player does not belong in the scene, right? But that's how we're spawning them for now until we have that code. What we're going to do, we're going to create a, what do we want to call this? The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to specify like a trigger volume, right? And so the first thing we need to do is create a node that actually houses it. So that node will be, I guess we can call port 2 zone 2, I guess, right? Doesn't really matter, I guess, what the name is. We are going to situate this one at the very center, right? So it's just going to be 0, 0, 0, no rotation, and 1 scale. And again, with the volumes, we're actually going to ignore scale as well. We're going to rely on the configuration of the volume itself to actually do the thing. So we are going to have, let's see, we should probably take the attachments, and instead of children, it's going to be here at the base level, right? So one more. We're not going to have, we're not actually going to have children here at all. This is just going to be just a root level node, right? So we are going to have a static mesh here. And we're going to have this to represent where the actual volume is so that we can see it in space. Obviously, we'll need to come up with something better than just the cube, but for now, we have the cube. And then the other attachment that we want to add to it, we're going to say the type is equal to volume, right? Pretty straightforward stuff, right? And then within that, we'll have various properties, right? So we're going to say volume type, right? And this is going to be a trigger volume, right? And then what are we triggering, right? So when you think about a trigger volume, or any volume really, there are a few different things that need to happen. So a trigger can either go off when you first enter the volume, it can go off when you leave the volume, or it can continuously go off as long as you're inside the volume, right? So those are 3 different things that potentially need to be handled. And so the way that I'm going to handle this, at least for now, is we are basically going to have commands that are executed for each one of these things if provided. So we're going to have, we'll do on enter, right? And this is going to be, I guess we could say, enable teleport, right? And then what are we gonna teleport to? We're gonna say we want to teleport to test zone 2, right? And then we're gonna say spawn point 0, right? And so you might look at this and go, well, that looks kind of like a console command, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. We're gonna leverage the console command system, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to set a state saying teleportation is enabled if we want to use it. And it's going to send us to test zone 2 and spawn point 0, right? And then on leave, we're going to say disable teleport. And that requires no arguments, right? And we're not going to specify anything for the in-between, right? So we could say, how do we want to put that? Because we have on enter, on leave, and then while contained, right, equals something. I don't really know what I'm going to call that yet. We could do, I guess, on inside, something like that, right? So we'll have to figure out what that is. But these are the only two that matter for now. So these are what we're going to define. And so this console command is essentially going to enable our context-sensitive control that we're going to set up, right? And we're going to use that state in order to handle the teleportation between zones. Is your game inspired by the Lord of the Rings? I mean, maybe parts of it might be, but searched about it and found a map. Interesting. Transient. Not sure what you mean by that. What do you mean by transient? Like as the state for this? Ryan Treat, first time chat. Welcome. Is your engine complete enough that you are now mostly just building the game, or are you actively working on the game and engine simultaneously? So it's going to be a bit of a back and forth process. We actually have a couple of things, a couple of them major that we have to implement. So here's the list of things. It's kind of split between 2 pages, which is lame. Hang on a second. There we go. So here's the list of things that we kind of need to have in place. So we need an animation system, which is one of the things that we're going to have to go to the engine for too and develop, right? We don't have an animation system yet. That's because the game that I was initially thinking about didn't really need one, but this one definitely does. And so that's going to handle animated meshes or skeletal meshes and animated materials ultimately, because we're going to need both those things. Volumes, which we're about to put in now, which I think is going to be a multi-step process. Kind of as we need them, we'll add them. Billboards, that'll obviously lead to a particle system, and then blended materials to get terrains working again. Point light shadows is kind of a little bit less of a major thing, but we do need to get that in place. Outline effect, I don't know if I'm going to do this one. That one might go by the wayside. Emissive and bloom is kind of a low priority one. Localization, we need to get that in there. Day-night cycles is probably needed. Gamepad support. So these are the things we're going to have to circle back to the engine for. So we are going to be doing it a little bit simultaneously. But my goal is to limit how much I'm having to do the engine to only features that I'm actually going to need for the game. So it will be a little bit simultaneous, and it'll probably lean a little bit more towards the engine initially as we kind of discover stuff along the way. And then, obviously, once a lot of those major features are in place, it'll lean way more heavily on the game development side. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so we have that. The other thing we need is we have the type of attachment. We have the volume type, right, which is a trigger. But we also need the shape type, and we had something kind of similar to this in our physics system, right? But in this case, the shape type, we're just going to do sphere, right? And then we can do transient is a state. Yeah, transient might work. Thank you for the follow, by the way. So the shape type, when we define sphere, we're going to have just a radius, right? So if sphere is defined, then we're going to say we need a radius. Let's go ahead and put that at like 5.0, right? Let's make it really big. So our cube will kind of be at the center of that, right? And then the radius for the volume will be a little bit bigger than that. And I think we should probably just use our debug shape that we use for our sounds to represent that as well, so that we can actually visualize that a little bit easier. And then that way we can eventually get rid of this. But for now, I'm just going to start with this. So if we had said shape type would be rectangle, then we would just provide extents, right? So it would be width, length, and height, right? Or width, length, and depth, however you want to look at it. All right. I think this is enough for us to go on. So let's flip over to, I guess we'll flip over to, how do I want to do this? Should we do the console command first, or should we do, let's get the volume in, and then we'll hook this stuff up afterwards, right? So we'll go to scene. We'll need the scene serializer. Oh, okay. It looks like... How is K asset types not found? Okay, it looks like I might have to fix that build issue now. Because that is definitely not right. It builds fine, but I think the compile flags texts aren't working correctly. Let me try something. I think that's just going to be down here. So we have compile flags. So let's see, we do, here is where it is. We need to do up. And we have folder assembly. So folder is going to be technically from the perspective of this build script. We're going to have to go up like 3 folders and then back down into the folder, which is going to be submodules, Kohi, and then the thing. So if we are here, we would need to go up 1, 2. Right, 1. No, we start off here, so would it be 2? Going up 1 would put us here, going up 2 would put us here. We'd have to go up 3 levels. Okay, with escape sequences, this is a little annoying. But then we do oops. This. Why am I thinking that's going to hard code that? Unknown option S. So we run sed on this. This is one of the reasons I'm wanting to switch to a C build system, right? It's to get rid of dependencies on stuff like this. Does it not like the fact that I have double quotes there? I don't think that's it. I mean, I suppose I could fix it manually, but that kind of sucks for now, too. Did I get the right number of... Yeah, it looks like it. Let's just do this for right now and see. Yeah, that worked. So it doesn't like the $sign in there. Oh, and that definitely is not right. Okay. So it should be... Oh, right. I see what I've done here. It needs to be ... backslash ... backslash ... Maybe that was the problem before. I think that was the problem. Or maybe not. It doesn't really like that, I guess. Okay, interesting. So, oh, it already has this in there. So why is it not giving me the... Bear with me one moment here. Oh, I see what I did. I used a backslash instead of... It should have been forward slashes. Derp. Yes, ... forward slash 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 ... forward slash. And I think I have to escape these forward slashes, annoyingly. I think. Regular expressions, aren't they fun? So it should be... Did I get that right? This escapes that. This escapes that. That's escaped. That's escaped. That. And then we just need one here. I think. Apparently not. Do I have too many of these guys in here? Probably. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right, so up 3 levels and then to the thing. Okay, so hopefully, has that done it? Yes. Sweet. Okay. Let's go back. There we go. Fixed. All right. So when we deserialize a node, or I guess attachment, deserialize attachment is what we're going to want to look for. We will need to look for attachment type, right? So we don't have... This is one thing that needs to be refactored, right? But I'm not going to do that now. So what we're going to do here is add a new attachment type for volume. Right, we'll call this volume. And then volume. Okay. That should cover us there. And then we're going to need a attachment config, right? So we're going to just, let's take a copy of this. And we're going to say water plane. This is going to be volume config, right? So volume config. We have the base in there. We have a couple of other properties we need. So what we're going to do, so these are going to have specific types of data that they accept, right? So shape types only going to allow sphere or rectangle, right? So we should probably have something in here. Where do I want to put that enumeration? I don't feel like it belongs here. Maybe at this level, do we just take the string values at this level? That feels kind of poopy. But I also don't want to. I guess we could do. Where do I want to put those? So I want to avoid lots of interdependencies, right? Do we do core? Do we do core resource types maybe? I feel like that kind of makes sense, right? I think since we're in core resource types, I feel like we could probably add that here, I guess. And then whatever needs it can just reference core resource types, I guess. All right, let's do that. So let's call it let's call this scene volume types, right? So we have scene volume type trigger is going to be the first one, right? And I guess we could just add these as needed. That should be fine. And then we'll also have type def scene shape type, right? Scene volume shape type is what that should be. All right, so this is going to be scene volume shape type. And we'll have just two, I think, for this one. So we'll have a sphere. If I can type. Wow, I still screwed that up somehow. Okay, so sphere. And then rectangle, right? And those are the only two shape types that we support. So that'll take care of that property, and then the rest of it just uses basic types, right? So we can do I guess let's do scene volume type first. And then scene volume shape type next. Right, and then what we could do here, since we're only going to ever use one or the other, I suppose we could do this as a union, right? So we'll put in here F32 radius, right? And then we'll also put in extents 3D extents, right? And then we'll call this union shape config, right? And so what that'll give us is the ability to say, shape config dot radius or dot extents, depending on what shape type we use here. I suppose that's a bit overkill, but whatever. I think it's fine. Okay. So we have that. What else do we need? So we have, I guess, just on enter, on leave, and then the whatever we're going to call that third state, right? So we're going to call this on, oops, I guess this is going to have to be stored as a string, which is not something we normally do in config, but it makes sense in this case because we're going to be executing this as a string, right? So we want on enter command, and then we'll do on leave command, and then maybe we do on tick, right? So on tick is the one that gets used while you're standing in it, right? So every tick or every update, maybe we call it update, right? So if that's defined every time the update loop hits and you're still standing in the thing, that gets called, right? If it's defined. I think that makes sense. So that's basically what our config is going to look like. I think that's fine. Let's come down here and we'll go ahead and set up volume config, right? So it's going to be volume configs. We'll do this. It's going to be a D array of volume attachment configs. All right. So that's that. We can go back now to the attachment type, which of course now it's bleating that we don't have that. So we can go down to the bottom and add that. I'm actually just going to copy this guy real quick, and we'll use that as sort of our template for the next. All right, so instead of water plane, obviously this is going to be volume. And then we want volume config as the typed attachment. And then I suppose we should have actually used something else, but let's see. We have string is kname. I don't think we want to do. We probably just want to get the string, right? So let's change this before I forget to do it. Let's do volume configs, and then create volume config, right? And then one more volume configs. Okay. So we have certain properties that are required, right? So the type we would have already gotten. The shape type is going to be required. We could say that we have a default, right? But like, why would you define a volume and then not want to define the shape and like extents or radius, right? That seems kind of silly. So we'll say if not, and we'll do case and object property value get string. And we're just going to use the string version of that. So we want attachment object. And the name we're going to want, the first name we're going to want is shape type, right? And then we're going to have to obviously point that to a value. So we're going to say shape type string, right? That means that we obviously need shape type string here. Initialize that to 0. And I think this had to be constant. Yeah. Okay. So if we do not get that, then we're going to say k-error shape type. Actually, we'll just say missing volume definition is missing required property shape type. And let's see, what have we been doing? Have we been returning false? Yes, we return false. Okay. So shape type is required. And then if we do have that, then we also need to take the string and try to convert it into an enumeration, right? So if strings equal I, and we'll use the case insensitive, right? So we'll use shape type string, and then we'll use sphere first. So if it's equal to sphere, then type detachment shape type equals scene volume shape type sphere, right? And then we can do else if rectangle, right? Then we could just do rectangle, right? Now, if it's equal to something else, unrecognized or unknown volume shape type, and we'll spit out whatever's configured there, and we'll do shape type string turn false. Okay, and then here we'll need to get different properties for each shape type, right? So for the sphere, we'll need to get the radius, which is also going to be a required property. So if case and object property value get float, and we need the attachment object, and then the name of what we're looking for. Must have hit the page up by accident. The name of what we're looking for is going to be radius, right? So radius, and then the out value is going to be the address of typed attachment, shape config. Whoops, shape config. Wasn't it shape config? Yeah, radius, right? If that's not there, then we'll just do this. Volume sphere definition is missing required property radius, right? So this shape type requires. And the whole thought is, by solving this problem now and pointing this out now, errors like this won't go to production, right? Because you won't even be able to load the thing. So we have that, and then the next bit is going to be extents. Ooh, I don't think we actually have a way. And I just actually thought of something. We don't want extents, we want a vector. So let me go to here. We don't want extents 3, we want a vec3 instead as our extents, right? So I think we do have a vector3 extraction, right? So we can say extents. Requires extents, and then we want extents, right? And then same thing here. And then, oops. Volume rectangle definition is missing required property extents. Okay, so if we have those things, we should have everything that's technically required. Now, the last bit of validation we're probably going to want to do is we should make sure that we have at least one of those three available: on enter, on leave, or on update. And if we don't, probably what we'll do is at that point we'll just warn about it. But we don't necessarily need to abort the load of the whole thing, right? We'll just warn about it so it shows up in the console, and go from there. So once we get down here, we have shape type and info. I think that's all that's left in here, right? Did we do... We didn't do volume type. We need to do volume type, actually. That's kind of important. Right, so volume type string equals 0, and actually we could just do this because this is required as well. Don't want to forget to do this. So this is going to be volume type string. Volume definition is missing required property volume type. Okay. And then obviously we're going to need something like this, so I'm actually just going to do copy pasta here because it's quick. Right, so we want volume type string, and then the only one we have right now is trigger, right? And so else unsupported volume type, and we'll spit out what was provided. Volume type string, return false. Okay. Now, for the actual trigger itself, the only thing we need to do here is... Oh, wait a minute, though. So... do we only have on enter, on leave, on update for trigger volumes, or do we always have those? Because I feel like a trigger volume is kind of like a base type of volume almost, right? It's very simple. Let's say that all types can have it for now. And if we don't need it on the other types later when we start adding other types of volumes, then we won't add it. So what we'll do for right now is typed attachment volume type equals scene volume type trigger. Okay, so that's volume type. Now we can get to the other stuff, right? So on enter is here. So this one is not a required property, so we don't have to necessarily check it for success or failure because we don't really care, right? Case and object property value get string. We still want to do it as a string. So attachment object is still going to be what we want. The name is going to be on enter, right? And then the out value is actually going to be typed attachment and then on enter command, right? And again, it's optional. So we don't care if it's not found, right, or not defined. So all we have to do is do that twice more. So we'll say on leave, and then on leave command, and then on updates on update command. Now, one final bit of validation. We want to make sure that at least one of the above was set. So we'll say if not typed attachment dot on enter command and not typed attachment dot on leave command and not typed attachment on update command. Then we're going to warn no commands were set for volume. We'll warn about it, but allow it anyways. Okay, I think that makes sense. So we're good there. Now we are going to have to do, that's deserialized attachment. So serialization needs to be handled too, but thankfully that'll be much easier to handle, right? So let's see. Nodes, serialized node, and I don't think we even split out attachments for this guy. I think it's just in here. Let's see, base properties. Yeah, so we basically just need to add one of these guys. So skybox configs. I think I can actually go thinking. Yeah, water plane configs. We're going to use this as a template, right? Okay, so this is going to be volume configs. Volume configs. Volume config. Okay, and then that's the base attachment. Okay, base properties name and type if they exist. That's fine, those write out as is. And then we will go ahead and add the additional properties. So we essentially just need to follow like this example here. So what we will do is obviously asset name is not what we need, right? We'll do shape type first. Right, and we'll do, let's see. So we got to add that as a string. So the shape type, we should probably switch off of that. So we'll do attachment. Whoops, it should be typed attachment. And then we want shape type. Or no, I guess we should do, it doesn't really matter what order, to be honest. Shape type. Right, we only have two cases here. So sphere is basically going to be, let's do this. Shape type string, right? Here we'll do shape type string equals, and in this case we'll do sphere. And we'll do break. Oh, does this have to be, I missed that, there we go. So we got this, and then we'll do here rectangle, right? And then we can add a string, and we'll call this shape type, and we'll do shape type string. And then if we fail to add it for some reason, we'll bleat about it, right? So there's shape type. And then I guess we could also do radius at the same time, right? Or radius or extents, right? So for sphere, if we're in here, while we're in here, we might as well do, no, I'm going to copy this, make this a little bit quicker. radius. So this is going to be radius, right? And this is going to be add float. And then the float we want to add is going to be the typed attachment shape config radius, right? And then we want radius. Okay. So we've got that, and then we're going to do the same thing down here for the rectangle, except it's going to be extents. Right, so we want to add vec3 extents, extents, extents. Okay, so that takes care of that, and then all we have is the on enter, on leave, etc. So these, what we'll do is we'll just check each one to see if they actually have something set up. So we'll say if typed attachment on enter command, right? Then we'll do an add string. So we'll do on enter, and then we'll add typed attachment on enter command on enter, right? And then we'll essentially just repeat this for the other two types, or the other two commands rather. So we have on leave command, on leave command, on leave, and on leave, and then on update command, on update, and on update. Okay. So that is serialization and deserialization handled. And now we'll have a config object that we can then use in our scene to actually load up the volume, right? So I guess what we can do is go to scene. And there's a couple things we're going to have to add, right? So we have obviously these structs that we're going to have to add here, right? So we have, I don't think we actually have, we don't actually have a structure type for this to represent it within the scene. So we could either follow this, which I'm going to have to refactor later anyway, or we could try and do it a slightly different way, but I kind of want to keep things uniform. So the good thing about these volumes is there's no loading, right? There's no resource to be loaded or anything like that, which is going to greatly simplify things. It's actually going to be more akin to how point lights work. So we actually might use this as our model, right? So we have our scene attachment and our point lights. I guess let's do that. So let's see, scene flag, scene attachment. Do we have scene node metadata? We don't need metadata for it either. Let's just type def something. Scene volume in here. This is likely going to move anyways. When we get ready to kind of clean this up a little bit. But for now, the volume basically needs these same properties over here. So we need scene volume type, right? So type, and then scene volume shape type. And then I guess we could probably also do the union thing again here. So we could do union, and then we can have F32 radius, if I could spell it correctly, and then vec3 extents, and then we'll call this shape config, right? And that'll take care of those properties. And then the only other things that we have are actually, again, going to be copies of these strings. So constant character array on enter command, and then on leave command, and on update command, right? And this is one of those rare instances where we actually do store a string here, because that's what we're going to have to use, right? In order to execute the console command. So, what we will do is in the scene, we'll go ahead and add an array of these scene volumes, right? Which I could have split these out in a more data-oriented way, but for now we're going to do it this way, and we'll refactor it later. So we'll do struct scene volumes, right? So we have that, and then we have attachments for it. So it's going to be volume attachments. So we'll just do this, volume attachments. Okay. And this is a D-array of volumes. Okay. So basically anywhere where we're doing point light stuff, because that's probably going to be the closest example of how we want to handle it. Anywhere we're doing point light stuff, or actually maybe even audio emitters is a good example, because that actually has the shape that we're looking for, right? Anywhere we're doing, let's go with audio emitters. Anywhere we're doing audio emitters, right? We will, well, no, I guess point lights is better because audio does have to be loaded. So yeah, let's go with point lights, right? And so, oh, interesting. That's not even used. Okay. Point light attachments. I guess we don't do anything with those in here. I thought we did. Oh, right, because we're in the H file. That's why. What a dingus. Okay. So I guess we need to switch over to the scene C file. And in here, yeah, we have 9. Okay. So we need to do volumes. Scene volume, right? And then we need volume attachments, which is an array of scene attachments. So we'll take the next one. Destroy, obviously, we have to handle in a very similar way. So we'll go ahead and do that, but we'll put it down here at the end. So this is going to be point lights, this is going to be volumes, and this is going to be volume attachments. Okay. So the next is going to be this configuration here, right? Which is more or less how all of this stuff works. Let's see. So this debug sphere 3D initialize stuff, we're going to want to take a copy of that eventually, but for now I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to do essentially a copy of this, which requires no loading of anything just yet. So let's see, audio emitter, static meshes, height map terrains, water planes. So at the end of this, water planes is where we'll put this, right? And so this is going to be volumes. So this is going to be volume configs. And then we want volume config, and then volume configs there. Okay. So point light, new lights. Instead of point lights, we want scene volume, right? And we're not gonna bother with the name. I guess we could though. We could do instead of name, we'll do volume type. Or I guess it's just type, right? Volume type, and then we do shape type, and then based on new lights, shape type, right? Based on that, we can either copy over new lights, shape config, radius for sphere. So that's going to be typed attachment config, shape config, radius, break. Or we do the same thing for rectangle, but using extents, right? So we've got that. Let's see. Type, shape type. Okay, so the only other thing are these strings here, which we're going to want to take a copy of, right? So what we're going to do is we'll do on enter command, and then we'll do string duplicates, and we'll take typed attachment on enter command, right? And then what I'm going to do is just copy pasta this twice on leave command and on update command, right? And then we can get rid of this. We don't have debug data, so we'll need to set that up, but let's rename this to new volume. There we go. Okay. Okay. So we do all this stuff. Let me sort this bit out, and then we'll sort the debug data out next. So this needs to be volumes. This needs to be volume count. And then this needs to be volumes. How do we know whether one's used or not? We don't have a generation here. Or do we really care? I guess what we could do, because I don't think we're going to be, well, yeah, I suppose we could add and remove them, right? I suppose we could set them to be active or not, though. Okay, I think we're always just going to do this. Right, we're just going to push, and then, oops, I need that. Volume counts, and then, all right. So we can do volumes, index equals new volume, so we set that up. This needs to be volume attachments. This also needs to be volume attachments. This needs to be volumes. Actually, we should just do volume here. New volume, rather. Then we don't need to do this. We don't need this. We don't need this. Actually, I guess we do need index for one thing. We do need this. Right, that's always going to be the last thing that's pushed in there. Oops. Volume count is there. Okay. We don't have metadata. We're not worried about that. Okay, so that is good for that, I believe. Okay, so our debug data is going to be hinged on the type of volume that we have. So we can either do a box 3D or we can do a sphere, right? So if we go up to, well, actually the first thing we need to do, we don't have this debug data, right, to even allocate. So we need that. So I think we had that in our, I believe we had that in our audio emitters. Just right there. Right, so all we need is just basically this. This needs to be forward declared, doesn't it? It does. This needs to be moved internal. I was wondering why I wasn't seeing the other types. Okay, so this just needs to be here. Right, and then what we need is this. We need forward declared here. Okay, that makes sense. So volumes, we do need this. I'm just going to grab these lines and come back down here to right here. And I'm just going to paste that in there for a second. Okay. Okay, so let's do a B8 init result. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll say, I guess we could add this stuff up here to this switch here as well, right? So if we take init result, we move it up here. Right, there's no reason that we can't just do this in line here. So we'll do the create and initialize here. Right, so the sphere would go here. Okay. And then the debug box create would be here. Right. And then here we could do if init result. Then we do that. Okay. So for this, we obviously have some different properties that we need to use. So Debug sphere. Debug sphere 3D. Okay. So we don't have a pointer to the debug data, I guess. I thought we did. Oh, that's got to be here. Okay. So that's going to be here. Moved up a little bit. And then as far as the actual radius, we're going to do typed attachment config. That's just going to be radius, I think. No, it's going to be shape config radius, right? And I believe this is a color, I want to say. Yes. Which is weird because the box doesn't actually ask us for a color. So there's a little bit of an inconsistency in the API there. Let's see. Hi, quick late night check on Kohi progress before sleeping. Fair enough. Appreciate that. Have to go. See you next time. Well, thanks for stopping by. Diamon, how's it going? Good to see you. Game is going well. We have the zone system in place to be able to transition between different zones. We fixed a couple bugs with that, and now we're actually creating volumes, specifically trigger volumes, so that when you, in this case, walk into a trigger, it will allow you to access some sort of or execute some sort of console command, either on exit, on leave, or on update, right? So continuously, and so we'll get that in there, and then we'll use our console system to execute that command and sort of set something in the game global state to say, hey, we are in a trigger node that allows us to teleport. And here is the zone that we could potentially teleport to, and the spawn ID, right? And so what that'll allow us to do is basically flip a flag within the game state to say, press F to teleport or something like that. And then, if you were to leave that trigger without having pressed anything, then that little display would go away. So that's essentially what we're working on tonight. Tomarstock, it's been a bit since I've seen you. How are you doing? Congrats on the first starting the first Kohi game. I think you said you had 3 games you had plans on making. I wonder if this one is like the second or bigger third idea you had. I've understood the idea before Christmas is scrapped. Yes. I've only seen some of the VODs for this series, but it will be exciting to follow the VODs. I'm really inspired to try and make a simple game from scratch just for fun after I'm done with CS Bachelors. Good luck with the game. I appreciate that. Yeah, I did. It's a combination of a bunch of factors. I wasn't really feeling it, A, and then B, I did some industry and market research, and vehicular combat games and racing games just are not selling right now. They're just not popular, and so I don't want to go through like the whole process of making a game that's just not going to sell, right? I mean, that might happen anyway, right? But I had some research pointing to those types of games just aren't doing well right now. So I pivoted and went with my more long-term idea that I had. And we're actually just kind of building it on stream as we go, designing and building. So that's where we are. Okay. I guess let's just do a to-do color, right? I do want to change this to something else, though, because I know audio emitters are using this color. Let's change this to, I guess, magenta, right? So that would be, that would need to be 1, 0, 1, right? Okay. So failed to create debug sphere 4. Sphere volume, right? So if we have a sphere type volume, then we're going to use a debug sphere. If we have a That should be sphere volume. If we have a rectangle, then we should use the extents for that. And I think this is half extents. No, it's just size. Okay. So what we can actually do here is if we are doing a box type, then we're just going to get rid of all this hard-coded stuff. Oops. And we can actually do typed attachment config, shape config extents. And just use that directly. Failed to create debug box 4. Instead of point light, it's going to be rectangle volume, right? And we have that same thing here. And then as far as the position to set, which we do have to do for boxes, again, we should probably figure out something better than that. But as far as the position that is set, I suppose we'll need to get that from the... We're going to have to get that from the owning node, actually. Which I'm trying to think if we even have to do that. I don't think we even have to do this. Let me think of it. We shall see. The parent X form, I think instead of doing an invalid handle, oops, we should do and I'm pretty sure we're doing this elsewhere in here. I think we need to grab the node's X form, right? So I think it's just going to wind up being is it X form handle? Yeah. Right. Okay. So we have that. Okay. Then we have the commands. And then init results, find the free slot to do that. Okay. Oh, the only other thing we have to do is this is point light. That should say volume. Okay. Volume attachments, volumes, volume. Okay. I think we're good to go. No more point light stuff in here. Perfect. Okay, so point light attachment. Update point light debug boxes. Okay, this we don't actually need to do for our stuff. I don't believe. Hello, Mr. Bearded Internet Man. How's it going? First time chatter. Welcome, by the way. Also, Maya, thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. All right. Yeah, so I don't think I need to do... because that already has the parent transform. We shouldn't have to do that. Okay, so we can skip that one. Update point light debug boxes. Point lights. So this is node serialization, which I'm not going to actually update this because we need to actually refactor this to use our serializer to handle this, not here. So I'll put a note in here. Or maybe I should just do it. Maybe I should just do it. Until I refactor this, because I don't actually know when I'm going to do that. So let me, I guess, just do it, as annoying as that is. So we'll do volumes. I think this is the last thing that we have to do, though. So, oops. So we'll do volume counts. Code Void 25, thank you so much for the raid. How's it going? Welcome. go ahead and give code void0x25 a follow. What were you up to on stream? GNU Git, I like that. I like the name, by the way. How's it going? Welcome. All right. Let's see. Volume attachments. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate that. Was working on my bot. Nice. Good stuff. Yeah, so we are in the middle of adding volumes to our scene right now. And we're going to set those up in such a way that we can actually trigger moving from one zone to the next. So, yeah, that's kind of what we're in the middle of tonight. We've kind of talked through the process of it, and now we're just actually in the implementation of it. So, I think I'm actually finishing up at least getting that into the scene, and then actually hooking up the, the collision and the interaction and stuff is going to come after that. So, let's see. We basically need to, we're in the serialization phase now, so we're basically writing out a scene, essentially. And so instead of water plane, the type needs to be volume. And then add an int. Let's see. Okay, so we don't need to add the int, right? We need the shape type. So I guess what we'll do here is we'll do a switch. And that's going to be... did we not? I guess not. I guess we can just do it this way. That's not great, I guess, but all right. Let's do volume type first. Okay. So we only have the one for right now, but obviously when we add others, this will bleat about it. So we need to add, we're going to add a string. The name of this is going to be volume type. And then we actually don't have metadata for this. So this is going to be volumes. Actually, we don't even need any of this either. We can just hard code this. If I can stop hitting the wrong keys, that'd be awesome. Okay, so in this case, it's going to be trigger. All right, so we have that, and then we also need to switch on volume sub m shape type. All right, so we'll add this break. All right, so, whoops, wrong line. Okay, so for this, we need to add the shape type property, obviously, right? But then we also need to add the properties of that shape type, right? So we'll have just a copy pasta here. This is going to be shape type, and then this is going to be sphere. And then we also want to add a float. All right, so this is going to be radius, and then the float that we're going to add is going to be s volumes sub m shape config radius. All right, and then for rectangle, we use the other part of that union. So we have shape type rectangle, and then here we have extents, which we don't see here, but that's what we've been calling it elsewhere. And then we'll use extents, right? And this needs to be a vector 3, right? So we'll serialize that. Let's see. I'm going to catch up on chat in just a second. Let me finish what I'm doing here, and then I'll kind of give a quick overview of what we're doing. what the channel's about and all that stuff. Just bear with me for like another minute or two. The only other things I need to serialize are, let's see, we have that. So just these guys, okay. Which is actually just going to be adding a string, right? So we can literally just do this, and then on enter, and then s volumes sub m on enter command, and then we'll do if s volumes sub m on enter command, right? Because we only want to add it if it's actually set. So we'll take this one and that one, right? And so we have on enter command, on leave command, and then finally on update command. On update. Okay. All right. So that's done, and I think we're good to go. All right. So, let's see. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'll give a brief explanation as to what all we're doing on the channel, right? And then I'll go from there. So, high level, what we are working on the channel is we have built a game engine from scratch using C and Vulkan as our initial rendering API. And so we spent almost 4 years working on that, building it completely from scratch, right? And so that was something that started on YouTube, eventually went to a live stream format on Twitch. It is open source and free. It's Apache 2.0 license, which means if you want to use it, you can. All I ask is that you just say that you used it. And so, we've been developing this for quite a while. I've got some aged screenshots here. I need to actually put some better ones in at some point. But we have a PBR renderer. We actually added water planes, which you can't see here, but I can show in a minute. We have the ability to render UTF-8 text, all that stuff, right? So we've got a whole bunch of things. Everything, for the most part, has been done on stream, or at least has been reviewed on stream. The engine itself sits about, I think, just shy of 80,000 lines of code, I want to say. So anyways, Kohi is the name of the game engine. The link to everything you'll need to have a look at that is there. And then the game that we are making with it, the first game that we are making with it, is called Shadows of Illumina. And we have basically just a brain dump document here. I'm not calling it a game design document because I don't think those are useful for single person teams or even small teams. I think just having sort of something as a guideline is good, right? So what we're building is a 3D isometric action RPG. So think like Diablo or Baldur's Gate or something like that, right? Although not 100%, it's not turn-based. It's not like your typical RPG where it has experience and levels and stuff like that. It is more skill-based. And so if you wanted to, if you get good enough at it, you could theoretically progress the entire game with no armor and a rusty dagger if you wanted to, if you get that good at it. So your progression is through the items that you collect and the stats that you build up, but that's about it, right? And so it's open world but zoned. So there's different zones, and I'll show just a world map here in a second. Dark Souls, kind of. Yep, exactly. / Elden Ring, that kind of deal, right? But in the format of an isometric RPG. And so we have a whole spec here in terms of like what the world, a little bit of lore about the world, the history, different groups of people, different races, different cities and stuff like that, right? We have a list of wanted mechanics we need to build out for the world, things like crafting, things like inventory, combat, items, progression, melee versus ranged versus magic versus all this other stuff, right? So we have all these things that we've sort of defined. And then this is sort of the work in progress world map that we have. And so I've been working on this. It's still far from done because there's lots of places in here that need to be added, have detail added to them and sort of split up because some of these zones are really huge. But there's a whole lore behind this as well, and I've already done a lot of work coming up with at least the broad strokes of lore that we have behind this. So the world is called Illumina, hence the name of the game is Shadows of Illumina. It's this whole play on words with light versus dark and all that. Where's the Dino Zone? I haven't decided yet. I'm thinking it might be in Torgora Wilds, actually, though. It kind of makes a little bit of sense to have dinos here. If we're going to put them in, maybe raptors in the hills or something. Yeah, we'll have dingus raptors in there. So yeah, this is kind of what we're thinking. We have 3 continents so far. So we have Thaldor, we have Valora, and we have Dravenholm. And so that is basically the world itself. And then in terms of like the code, there's no way I could possibly walk through all of this right now because if I do I not have... I thought I had clock installed. Do I not have clock installed? Thought I did. Didn't I run this on the last stream? Could have swore I did. Will Florida Man be in the game? Yes. So is it more Nordic? So not all of it, just part of it, right? So like this area absolutely is, yes. Yep. Florida Man be in the game. We might have to put some sort of reference in there. I won't call it Florida, but I think it'll be obvious as to what it is, right? We'll call it something close. Okay. Give me a second here. Let me get that installed. Okay. All right, so I'll run clock. Oh, you know what? I know why it's not here. Because I recently wiped out my install. All right, anyway. Yeah, this is... Wait a minute. Oh. Is this not recursing subdirectories? That's not including my submodules. Interesting. All right, so Kohi itself sits at 76,935 lines, right? Most of that being C and C++. There's a few of other things in here, like the big ones are GLSL and Objective-C. I don't know what it's considering Kermit. I have a feeling it might be because of one of my file extensions for my proprietary formats. Markdown, CSS, I don't think is in there either. So there's a few things in here that are a little bit confusing, but those are relatively small compared to everything else. So yeah, we're looking at about 2,000 lines of game code so far because we're not very far into it at all. 77,000 lines of code in the actual engine itself. But yeah, that's essentially where we're at. So I hope that makes sense. Florina. Close enough, but different enough. Yep. The guy who killed the goose with a shovel. Yeah. Or, people wrestling alligators and stuff and shoving alligators into trash cans. Because in Florida, an alligator being on your front lawn is a normal thing. Yeah. Florina. I'll have to make a little peninsula somewhere, right? I don't know. And I'll have to make it phallically shaped, of course, too, because Florida, you know. Anyway, so I think that is going to actually do it for the stream because I do have to get up and work in the morning. So um, that's a heck of a note to close out on. But yeah, so we've added we've actually added the volumes to our scene config, and I think we'll have them loaded up successfully. We can test that in tomorrow's stream, as well as actually implement the stuff to actually get them to trigger when the player goes into colliding with them. So with that, I'm going to look for somebody to raid. If you guys haven't already, I would greatly appreciate a follow, by the way, because I am trying to grow the channel, and every little bit helps. I'm trying to hopefully entice more folks to want to get into engine development. To see that, yes, it is possible to build your own engine and build a game with it, if that is what you want to do. So thank you for the follow. I really appreciate that. Let me see who's out there that I can raid. Okay. Tell you what, we are going to raid Odd Oculus, because he hasn't been on for a while I've been online. So we'll see what he's up to. Looks like he's working on camera movement today, so we'll see what he's up to. Yeah, just join me in that. And thank you guys so much for being here. We'll be back tomorrow night at 9, or probably a little bit before 9 Eastern Standard. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being here, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.